She has been super famous for almost 40 years, and you'd think that after so much time, there would be no secrets left about Julia Roberts. This lady became famous all over the world before she was even 30 years old. She's an actress who could make the movie screen bright with just her big smile. She is a billion-dollar movie star who looked like she had everything figured out perfectly. She was the star girl who was the main person in more love movies than anyone can count. She made us believe in sweet love stories both in the movies and in her own life. But then something big happened. When she was 58 years old, sitting in a nice, soft-light studio with cameras rolling, Julia Roberts decided to show us a secret. The host asked a simple question. It was about things she wished she hadn't done or chances she didn't take. But Julia's eyes suddenly looked a bit exciting and dangerous. This meant the talk was about to change from the perfect, clean Julia Roberts the world knew. It was about to change to someone much more real, much more like a normal person and way more shocking. She leaned back in her chair, that famous smile playing on her mouth, and her voice became quiet and personal. It was a voice that held the weight of secrets she had kept for decades. "There are 7 men," she said softly. 7 actors, 7 legends, 7 special friendships that changed who I am in ways nobody could guess. 7 stories that no one knows. The studio became totally silent. Even the people who make the show seemed to stop breathing. This was not the same Julia Roberts who comes to tell nice stories to sell her movies with ready-made tales and practiced charm. This was a woman ready to talk about things that had been hidden under layers of being a great actress and keeping her private life quiet for a very, very long time. The first name came out of her mouth like something she'd been waiting to say for many, many years. "Tom Cruise," she started, and her voice sounded both sweet and a little funny. That man walked around the world with a way of being sure of himself that was almost like magic. Working with Tom wasn't just about the acting scenes we shared on camera. There was something about how serious he was, his complete focus on everything he did, that made you feel like you were the only person in the world when he looked at you. Tom had a way of looking at you that made time just stop. People saw him as this super action guy, the one who would do his own risky jumps, who'd push himself to crazy limits for a movie part. But what they didn't see was the secret sad part hiding beneath all that constant effort. When we were filming together, there were these little moments between takes. These stolen seconds where the cameras were off and the crew wasn't watching. And in those moments, Tom would let you see something true, something that no one else ever got to see. She stopped thinking about a memory for a moment. One night, after a really hard time filming in New Orleans, we ended up on the balcony of my hotel just chatting. We weren't talking about the movie or our jobs, but about everything else. He told me things that night that I've never told anyone else. And I let him see parts of me that I had kept locked up. By the time the sun came up, we both understood that something had changed between us. It wasn't just being attracted to each other or finding each other good-looking, though, oh boy, there was a lot of that. It was recognizing each other. 2 people seeing each other for who they really were underneath all the fame and the pressure and what people wanted from us. It was the kind of connection that doesn't happen very often in life. The second name came with a different type of smile, one that was mixed with lots of feelings. "Brad Pitt," she said, and the importance of that name hung in the air. Brad was not like Tom. Where Tom was all about being very focused, Brad had this easy, natural coolness about him. He went through life like he was dancing, and being near him felt exciting in ways I hadn't thought about. We met at a party when we were both just starting our acting jobs. Before he was Brad Pitt, the huge star, before everyone knew his name, he was just this very handsome actor with a big future and a happy spirit that pulled people toward him like bugs to a light. We didn't work together in a movie, but we kept finding ourselves near each other again and again over the years. There were moments, very strong moments, where the feeling between us became something we couldn't pretend wasn't there. He had this way of making you feel like you were the most important thing in his world, like everything else went away when you were together. She leaned forward a little bit. The thing about Brad was that he was truly nice in a way that made it safe to be honest. You didn't have to fake things with him. You didn't have to keep up the perfect movie star act. He saw through all of it, and instead of judging what he found, he accepted it. There was a night in a snowy town called Aspen. I remember it like it was yesterday. We had a talk that lasted until the morning, and somewhere between the wine and the honest talk and the total connection, we became more than friends. It was short, but it was real in a way that mattered a lot. The third name brought a deeper, more thoughtful sound to her voice. Leonardo DiCaprio, she said softly. Now, Leo was always someone I had huge respect for as an actor, but I never thought I'd feel what I felt when we finally got close. Leo was so committed to his acting job, so determined to become his characters, that it was sometimes hard to tell the man apart from the actor. But when you got him by himself, when you really got to know him, there was this smart, complicated brain in there. This person who thought a lot about everything, who always questioned the world, who wasn't happy with just the simple outside things. We met many years ago at a fancy Hollywood event, and there was an instant smart connection. We talked for hours about everything from movies to saving the planet to love and sadness. And without even knowing it, that smart connection turned into something physical. It happened in a quiet moment in his apartment. After hours of talking, he kissed me like he was trying to say things he couldn't say with words. Like his whole self was put into that moment. Leo made love like he acted, with complete focus and presence. Nothing was held back. It was strong and honest. And afterward, we just lay there understanding without talking that this was something special. Something we'd never be able to fully explain to anyone else. The fourth secret came with an unexpected happy feeling, almost like she was remembering something fun instead of something shocking. Owen Wilson, she said with a real laugh, and I swear I can still hear that funny voice of his in my head. Owen had this exciting energy that just made everything feel possible. He was funny and real and totally unimpressed by who was important in Hollywood, which I found totally great. We met on the set of a movie, and there was this immediate comfort between us. No silly games, no pretending, just two people who liked each other and could make each other laugh. Owen didn't need to try to impress you. He already knew he was good enough just as he was. And that kind of being sure of yourself is actually really nice. We had a short but sweet relationship while we were filming together. We'd steal moments between scenes, find quiet spots on the set where we could be alone. He'd tell me these silly stories that would make me laugh until my tummy hurt, and then he'd lean in and kiss me like none of the crazy parts of our job mattered. With Owen, everything felt light and happy but not fake. He had serious thoughts underneath all that charm. He could be deep and wise when he wanted to be, but he chose to be funny more often, and I loved him for it. The fifth name carried a feeling of strong passion and excitement. Matthew McConaughey, she said, and her voice sounded different. Matthew was pure good looks mixed with southern charm. That man had a way of walking around the world that was almost like a spell. We worked together early in both our careers, and there was this very strong attraction that was impossible to ignore. Matthew wasn't just a handsome face. He was smart and soulful and truly wanted to connect with people on a deeper level. Off-set, he was even more amazing than he was on screen. We had this strong thing that lasted for a few months. We'd meet in secret places where nobody would ever think to look for us. He'd play his guitar, and we'd talk about life and love and everything in between. He had this way of making you feel like you were the most interesting person he'd ever met. Like your thoughts and feelings really mattered. There was an honesty to him that was surprising. He didn't hide behind layers of acting. He was real and present and fully there with you in a way that's very rare in our world. Our time together ended when our job plans pulled us apart, but I'll never forget the way he made me feel. The sixth name brought a smile that was both sweet and had a little bit of sadness in it. Denzel Washington, she said, and I could hear the care in those two words. Denzel is one of those men who just carries himself with such respect and presence that you are instantly drawn to him. He's not just a great actor, he's truly a good person. And that mix of being talented and being good is super attractive. We ran into each other at a Hollywood party, and there was this immediate connection. We started talking, and hours passed like minutes. Denzel had this way of listening that made you feel truly seen. He wasn't just waiting for his turn to talk. He was truly interested in what you had to say. We spent that night talking about our job. Yes, our families, our hopes, and our worries. And when the night ended, we knew something had changed between us. What followed was a short but deep connection. Denzel loved with purpose. He was careful and thoughtful and made sure you knew exactly how he felt. There was no confusion with him, no games. He was direct and honest and treated you like someone he truly cared about. It was beautiful and real, but it was also hard because we both had lives in different places, paths that didn't fit together. He's a man I'll always have deep, warm feelings for. The seventh and last name hung in the air before she spoke it. She took a breath and you could feel that this one was different. This one mattered in a way the others didn't. Johnny Depp, she said quietly, and the importance of that name settled over everything else like a big blanket. Johnny was darkness and light mixed together in one beautiful, confusing package. He was an artist in the truest meaning of the word. He was completely focused on his acting, willing to disappear into the characters in ways that were both brilliant and worrying. When you met Johnny, you weren't just meeting an actor. You were meeting someone who was always searching, always asking questions, always trying to understand life through his work. We met at a time in both our lives when we were looking for something we couldn't even name. There was this magnetic pull between us that was hard to stop. Johnny had this way of being vulnerable that made you want to protect him, even though he was totally able to take care of himself. He was moody and complicated and sometimes hard to deal with. But underneath all of that was this beautiful soul that was desperately trying to connect with the world. Our time together was strong and exciting and in the end sad. We loved each other, but we were both too broken in our own ways to make it work. He wanted to take up all of me, and I needed to keep myself whole. We wanted different things at the end of the day. But those moments we had, they changed me. They taught me about love and sadness and the way a connection can change who you are even when it doesn't last. She sat back in her chair, and the silence that followed was heavy with importance. 7 names, 7 legends, 7 men who had seen a part of her that the public never would. 7 connections that had shaped her into the woman she became. The host finally spoke, his voice very careful. Julia, these are some of the biggest names in movie history. Were all of these relationships kept completely secret? She tilted her head, thinking about the question carefully. Private, she said finally, is better than secret. There's a difference. Secret means you feel shame, like you're hiding something because you're embarrassed by it. Private just means you're protecting something sacred, something that matters too much to share with the whole world. These connections, these men, they were sacred to me. Each one taught me something different about myself, about wanting things, about what it means to truly live and not just be alive. She leaned forward, her voice becoming more thoughtful. When I was younger, I wanted everyone to know everything about me. I wanted to control the story people told about my life. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that some things are actually better when they stay private. The world doesn't need to know everything. In fact, the most important parts of our lives are usually the parts we keep close. People want to hear shocking stories. They want to know every tiny detail. But sometimes the most beautiful things in life are the things nobody knows about except the people involved. There's a holiness in that privacy. The interviewer pressed softly, but surely there were rumors about some of these connections, especially when you worked with them. Julia laughed, a sound that was both knowing and entertained. Oh, there were always rumors. In Hollywood, rumors go faster than light. People would guess forever about the chemistry between actors, about whether something was real or just for the cameras. But rumors are usually so boring compared to the actual truth. They'd see the way Tom and I looked at each other on screen and wonder if there was something between us, never guessing the depth of what we actually shared. They'd notice Brad and I were close at certain events, but they never understood the layers of connection that existed underneath the surface. She paused, her eyes looking far away. The thing people don't understand about Hollywood is that it's not just about glamour and red carpets. It's about spending intense time with super talented people who are exploring human feelings alongside you. When you're making a movie, especially an emotional one, you're creating something together that needs you to be vulnerable. You're opening yourself up in ways that are usually only for very close relationships. And sometimes that openness leads to actual closeness. That's not a shocking story. That's just the natural way things happen when you're human with another human. The confession kept flowing from her like water breaking through a wall. With Tom, she said softly, the strength of our connection was about understanding each other. We understood each other's drive, our need to be the best, our knowing that success in this job requires giving up certain things. Brad taught me that smoothness and beauty can exist with serious thoughts and smartness. He showed me that you can be beautiful and still be real. Leo taught me about strong passion for ideas and causes bigger than ourselves. He cared deeply about the world, and that passion showed up in everything he did, including love. Owen reminded me not to take things too seriously all the time, that humor and happiness are just as important as intensity. Matthew showed me that it's nice when men are honest about their feelings, and that you don't have to hide your feelings to be strong. Denzel taught me about respect and true love, the kind that is measured and thoughtful and genuine. And Johnny, she said, her voice dropping even lower. Johnny taught me about the cost of connection, about the way loving someone deeply can change you even if it doesn't work out. Her face softened. I think people forget that celebrities are actually just people. We feel things very strongly. We make mistakes. We fall in love. We hurt each other sometimes without wanting to. We feel the full range of human emotions. Sometimes on a more public stage than most people, but basically we're the same. These 7 men were not shocking stories. They were chapters in my life book. They were teachers and lovers and partners and mirrors reflecting back to me who I was becoming. She sat up straight, that famous smile returning to her face. But it was different now. It was more honest than any smile she'd shown before. It was more real because it was based on true experience and true emotion. At 58 years old, Julia Roberts had decided to tell the truth that had been burning inside her for decades. Not to hurt anyone, not to make a scandal, but simply because she'd reached a time in her life where she was ready to own her own story. She was willing to be seen as a complete human being with desires and passions, and a romantic past that went far beyond what Hollywood wanted to believe about her. And somehow telling those truths only made her shine brighter, because that's what happens when you are finally willing to be honest. When you stop pretending to be less important than you are, when you claim your full power and your full humanity, when you refuse to say sorry for the parts of your life that have been private and special, that's when you become truly beautiful. Not because of what you've done or who you've been with, but because you've finally given yourself permission to be real. And real is always more beautiful than the perfect version we show the world. Julia Roberts had spent nearly 40 years teaching the world about love through her movies. But now at 58, she was teaching them about truth. And that truth, messy and confusing and deeply human, was far more powerful than any story she could ever act out on screen.